Today I am making a video that I've been meaning to make for a very long time, and this is a review for the movie Luca. When I initially watched this movie, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very nice Pixar movie. I thought it was pretty wholesome. But since I've had my child, which has been a year now, for some reason, my newborn baby picked this as the movie that she loved, and I have watched this. I'm not kidding. Well, like, not attentively, of course, but I have watched this probably a couple hundred times. Yeah, we've had this on in the background because the ambience and the music that Luca brings just settles my child for some reason. So today I'm going to be breaking down one of my favorite Pixar movies because it has now made a special dent in my heart with my newborn baby. Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channel. So we're going to be diving into the entire plot of Luca, talking about it and what my child ended up liking. I don't know what it is. I get the water could be sensory for them, but she watched the entire movie, and if you were to like put the song like I can like sing all of the songs. She would just like, if you had it in the background, I was holding her, she would just do this. A newborn kid, out of all the things. It's crazy, eh? But let's talk about Luca. So the movie is set around 1950s in Italy, and there's, I'm sorry, I don't remember the town's name, but there's a specific town in Italy that I didn't know wasn't fictional. I need to educate myself on the culture over there, but regardless, there's a town, and there's some sea monsters in this movie. We're introduced to our character Luca right away, who is just kind of bored. He's intrigued on what's going on over at the surface, and he's doing some work for his parents. They have a little farm set up for the sea monsters. He has a good life. The music's all wholesome. The graphics are great, and he's just seemingly wants a little bit more from life. He has been dreaming about going to the surface, but his parents are kind of all like, Luca, you can't go to the surface because there's fishermen, there's boats. The curious fish gets caught is what they had to say. All of that kind of makes sense, but he was curious anyways. But one of these days, Luca ends up running into our best friend Alberto, and Alberto is somebody who just goes to the surface whenever he feels like it. And Alberto ended up showing a whole new world for Luca because he was just kind of like, hey, here, hold this. Come on, let's go. And what Luca learned is when these sea monsters go to the surface, they turn into humans. And I have a particular little bit of a special spot in my heart for this moment because, again, I'll bring this back to my child, and hopefully it's still enjoyable for you guys to watch. If you guys don't ever want me to talk about like my own experiences watching this, please let me know if you want me to like actually break it down. But we're talking about a Pixar movie over here. Regardless, Luca ends up getting dragged up there after not wanting to go. Alberto just takes his little hook or whatever he had, brings him up into the water, and Luca turns into a human for the first time. And when he started screaming, for some reason my kid finds it funny. And particularly when when Alberto looks at Luca and goes, hey, relax. Because he was screaming just because he turned into human. Every time he said that, it's sad because my kid grew out of it now. Not the movie, but like that particular moment. She had a good couple month period where we would make sure that she's like watching because it was so cute when Alberto would go, relax, she'd go, and then just like back to like just enjoying the movie. I don't know what it was, but the word relaxed, she found funny. So Luca ended up getting taught how to walk, and this is something that I've been, my kid's in the process of learning how to walk right now, so we've been actually quoting the movie. It's like, okay, you take a step and you just catch yourself before you fall down. And all of that was wholesome. All of that was funny. Luca now has a entirely new aspect of the world. This is something that he wanted to do, but his parents were not okay with it. We learned that Alberto lives alone. His dad abandoned him, but he was showing Luca all of this cool stuff. And Alberto is, while it's understandable for the way he turned out and he was a kid, he's a little bit of a not so great friend. He wants to be super cool, but I guess he's just hiding all of the pain, right? He's like, yeah, I've been here. I'm an expert. I basically invented walking. I basically invented breathing. And he said some Italian phrase where he's like, yeah, I'm pretty good with Italian language. And Luca's like, what's it mean? Just changes the topic. So Alberto's one of those guys. We're then brought to some really, really fun scenes. We had a little bit of a scare with Luca going back down and the mom wondering where he was and the grandma coming to save the day because the grandma, what we didn't know is the grandma went to the surface and the grandma is on Luca's team. But we have some scenes where they just end up bonding and it's really cute. I like them wanting to dream about getting a Vespa, them riding it everywhere and just traveling the entire world. It's very fun. It's very cute. It's very innocent for a children's movie. And I even have trouble saying it like children's movie because this is one of those, like Pixar does a good job at having a movie where adults can enjoy this too. And I legitimately really enjoy this movie. And it's just the fact that my kid liked it so much. And it's the first thing that we kind of bonded over when she was a newborn, which is a little bit strange. It just, I like it that much more. You know, I never actually get sick of it. My wife, she's sick of it because she's been home for a year and watching Luca even more than I have. But we have some really funny scenes where they're trying to make their own Vespa. They're looking for senior Vespa. They just want a Vespa. They want to travel the world. And their bond ends up growing even closer. They become best friends pretty quickly. But this is where the movie kicks off a little bit, because not everything is sunshines and rainbows for Luca. His parents end up discovering that he's been to the surface because he ended up sleeping in. He ended up going home, and the mom kind of knew where he was because of his curiosity about going to the land. So they were going to make him live with his uncle for a long time in the deep sea because he needed to be punished, although the dad wouldn't want it. The mom was in control. So Luca, that night, decided to get angry, run away with Alberto. To get away, and they just needed a Vespa. They wanted to go travel the world. They end up going to the town. I'm sorry, guys. Is the town, and this might, apologies for my ignorance, is the town Porto Rosso, because I'm thinking of the Porto Rosso Cup. I don't know much about Italy, to be honest with you, so wherever they went, there was a close by town. It's a famous town, and they ended up going there, and they ended up having to blend in with all of the humans. This is where the movie really shined, in my opinion, because Alberto was being cocky, pretending to know what happened, and they see a couple of people getting angry at each other. So the first thing they say is like, "What's wrong with you, stupido?" And the guy, like, it's just, they're being rude for no reason. It's funny watching them adjust, and I thought that's where the movie was very strong. But then they quickly bump into Ercole. I love Ercole. I think he's hilarious, okay? Just the snubby guy that he is, just the town bully, right? The 5-time winner of the Porto Rosso Cup. He just sees like, oh, out of towners, eh? And then it's just being mean to them for no reason. Like, I'm sorry. I find that stupid humor funny. It kind of reminded me of like Eggman. If you ever watched Sonic X growing up, like how mean he was kind of funny. And obviously he's a D-bag. He just not meant to be taken seriously. But he ends up bullying them right away. He's going to expose Luca for what? Oh, you're just going to go take a little bath. And then the water started dripping on Luca, but Ercole ended up seeing it a little bit. But we also learned like a problem is they can't touch water because their sea monster skin will show. And the town hunts sea monsters. The town hates sea monsters. They're scary monsters that need to be killed. Okay, so they need to hide. But then Julia shows up, and this is where we're introduced to our third main character. And it gets me every time, man, that like he's just so snubby, the guy, right? Julia comes in, she's like, "Oh, your empire of injustice," saves Luca at the last second. And then Urkazle is like, "Spulia." I love it. It's hilarious, man. But then he talks about how he's the winner of the Porto Rosso Cup. There's another one coming up. It's a big race, and Spulia was ever able to beat him. And this is where they figured out that this is where he got his Vespa. Oh, and I forgot to mention that he rolled up and like, it's just funny. Like, they were going to knock over the Vespa and somebody got lucky today, all of that stuff. And his friends are just like, he's the group leader of their friends, and they were saving the Vespa. And he's like, "Oh my God, my poor Vespa. Is it okay?" And they wanted a Vespa. They thought he was senior Vespa, and they end up challenging him to the Porto Rosso Cup. And Alberto's like weirdly confident, arrogant, you might say. And he's like, "All right, so we'll beat Ercole. No problem. We'll get enough money. And what can we do with this money? Can we get our own Vespa?" So now they are invested in this race, and they're teaming up with their new friend, Julia. We have some funny moments when they're training together. Alberto isn't really participating. He's just falsely confident that he's going to get the job done. Luca and Alberto have some nice moments, like adjusting to human culture. They like her dad's cooking. They meet the dad, Massimo, that's his name. And he's a nice guy, but he hates sea monsters. But like I said, there's not too much to break down here. They're adjusting to life. The parents end up coming on, and they had some funny moments too with like just getting all of the kids wet looking for Luca, right? Luca notices the mom. But in the meantime, Luca and Julia end up growing closer because they find a love for books in space. Luca likes learning about the world. Alberto told him that the stars were fish in the sky. And she's like, "Huh? No, these are stars." Pulls out a book, and Luca gets an interest in going to school. Alberto's worried about losing another person in his life and losing his friend, so he starts getting upset, lashing out. He starts hating Julia a little bit and starts being a little bit of a bad friend. This ultimately leads to him revealing that they're sea monsters. Have a little bit of a fight, and it actually stopped my heart a little bit the first time watching this, guys, because when Alberto was showing like, "Hey, are sea monsters allowed to go to school?" He revealed himself, right? And then Luca goes, "Sea monster." Which is crazy, right? And Alberto ends up having to swim away. They're hunting him, and Ercole's over there too, like, sea monster! But shortly after, Luca's kind of freaking out, and Julia ends up like, "Hey, wait, Luca, what's going on?" Spills some water on him, and then he's revealed to be a sea monster too. But because Julia has a really kind heart, she doesn't have prejudice against anybody or any sea monsters. She's perfectly a-okay with it. She's just like, oh, I don't remember what she said, like Mamma Mia or something like that. But this leads us to going on to the climax and the finale of the movie, and this is where Luca goes back to Alberto and kind of apologizes, but Luca learns the truth that his father abandoned him, and Alberto was only lashing out and was afraid of losing Luca because he didn't want to lose another person. So I sympathize for Alberto a little bit, but still, don't behave like that. But then what is he, like 10? So how much can we really look into that? But Julia is worried for Luca and his well-being. She doesn't want to participate in the race with him, so Luca still wants to get that Vespa, still wants to get that dream, so he participates in the race by himself, competing against Julia. So the race starts, they swim, they eat, Hercules funny. It's not until anything really happens until they get to the bike portion of the race where it ends up starting to rain, and Luca's identity is starting to get exposed, right? So he has to hide under, what was it, like a little tarp or something like that. He has to hide, and Hercules passes him. He's like, oh, what's wrong? Afraid of a little water, and Hercules is winning the race, but then Alberto comes along. And it's shocking how, like, for these Pixar movies, I love Pixar movies, man. It's shocking how, like, emotionally pulling it can be. Because when Alberto showed up with the use of music, too, the two best friends kind of being there for each other and Alberto coming back to save the day, that was really nice. But then Hercules just comes in, boots him to the side, and the music choice was perfectly done here. Again, because it really, really did a good job at filling the moment. And he had enough. Alberto was like, no, you're okay. Just stay there. He was revealed to be a sea monster and they're hunting him, right? But then Luca decides to have his own moment and doesn't care about the race and steals Alberto, just swipes him away at the end of the day after, I think he was covered by a net, or maybe that was right after. Pretty sure it was right then, but he takes him and the sea monsters end up winning the race. And again, the music was perfect. It was a really, really tense moment. And it did a good job when Luca actually transformed in front of everybody. That was arguably the best part about the movie. So they end up winning the race, and of course, everybody's fearful that they're sea monsters. And Julia's dad, Massimo, ended up being the one to save the day. I guess he was the big boss of the fishermen all around. They wanted to hunt him, and then Hercules wasn't really having it. Sorry, I just think about like him and his scarf like in the water. There was another scene too that I didn't mention with him losing his scarf in the water. He's like, what are you doing? You know, with his friends just smacking them, or like, Chicho, slap this guy, or whatever his name was, right? Loved all of that. But the dad ended up coming and goes, hey, these are Luca and Alberto, and they are the winners. Everybody kind of realized that sea monsters weren't bad, and it was this cute little Pixar moment that they all had, and there were some other sea monsters living among them. The grandma was revealed that she comes to town. She said she comes to town every weekend or something like that. So we quickly transitioned to a period where it's okay for sea monsters to live among humans. They're actually not bad. And everybody was mad at Hercules. They throw him in the water. He's like, my scarf. And I'm sorry, something I completely forgot to mention. It was Julia saved the day because Hercules was hunting them with the spear. And Julia ended up actually sacrificing the race that she wanted to win so bad. She got her little win saying, so long, evil empire of justice. But they ended up checking on her. Everybody's okay. They're hugging. And then we transition to a part where everybody's happy. The father invites everybody in. They're all having a great time. The grandma's there. The parents are there. The mom's still worried, though. And there was a good life lesson that the grandma ended up teaching the mom, where it's like, not everyone will accept him, but he knows how to find the good ones. Things like that. And then Alberto has some nice character development, convinces Luca's mom to let him go to school. Alberto finally had his Vespa. They were having a good time with it. They were all laughing. They were having a great time with it. But Alberto ended up actually selling the Vespa to let Luca end up going to school. They promised to stay in touch, and Luca was all surprised, but Alberto was revealed that he's not going with Luca, and it was actually like a really, really sad moment. So they promised to stay in touch. I think he was only going to school for, was it a summer school? I don't really remember, but they said they'd be in touch. They said they'd be back. We have a really emotional moment with Luca riding the train and actually getting to go to school with Julia, and Alberto staying with the father, so he's going to have somebody in his life, which is really nice too. He's going to grow up. The parents are going to stay in touch with their kid. Luca gets what he wants. He gets to learn about the world. The world is starting to accept sea monsters. It starts raining, and both of them transform, and as Alberto's transforming and running out into the rain like, go, Luca, go! It was a very wholesome moment. It was very touching, and it was shocking at how touching this movie actually could be. And I gotta say, man, I really love it, and I like the character development for Alberto too. He finally got the family that he never had. He stuck around, and the two best friends ended up separating, but they're gonna come back together again. I wish we could have gotten a second movie, but I know this movie didn't perform, so we're never gonna get a second movie. I've heard something about the Luca writer actually looking into making another story. That I would be very interested in, but this movie has a special place in my heart, and it always will, man, because for some reason my newborn baby loved all the ambience, loved just looking at the water, like particularly the beginning of the movie she really loved, but anytime that there was any sort of music, and still to this day, she just turned 1 year old, she smiles whenever, like, if Luca's on the background or something. So it's very nice. Sometimes we can like calm her down playing like the Luca music, and it's just music that I would never listen to, but it holds a special place in my heart. So this was one of my favorite Pixar movies. I would love to know what you think about everything down below. Thank you very much for watching. Why don't you check out this Inside Out 2 review that we did? I'd love to have you over there. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Take care, guys.